What's up, YouTube? Today we're gonna be reacting to killer rocket scientists versus expert detectives. So it's getting kind of dark outside already.
On May 15th,
It's been
2018,
getting
at
dark
exactly
early, but it don't matter. We still gonna do our reactions.
1:05 p.m., customers were relaxing at the Magyar Cosmetica Spa located at 11 Marablu Drive in Aliso Viejo when something inside the spa exploded.
They put a bomb in the spa.
911, what is your emergency?
Please, there's someone inside.
In a hurry, first responders rushed to the scene. When they arrived, they discovered devastating news. There were 3 victims in the spa that were caught in the explosion. A mother and daughter who survived with severe burns and lacerations, and
Uh,
Ildiko Krajniak, the owner of the spa, who was killed instantly. The inside of Ildiko's spa was unrecognizable, and the blast was significant enough that human remains were discovered outside of the building. Local
hmm.
authorities immediately opened an investigation into the explosion and began by interviewing the 2 people that were injured from the blast. According to these witnesses, they were inside the spa with Ildiko, having just completed their treatments. As they went to the front desk to make their payment, they saw Ildiko pick up a package and walk into her office. As soon as she tore it open, there was a bright flash and a loud explosion.
It was definitely rectangular. It's probably shoebox height, but I don't remember it being that wide.
These witness statements made it evident to law enforcement that the explosion was not an accident or the result of a gas leak, but likely a targeted attack. The FBI located materials in the blast zone that are typically found in homemade explosives, confirming their beliefs that this was caused by a bomb.
At this point, our working theory is that this explosion was caused by a device, and although the damage was extensive, there are some components that we have
Why
located
would
at
you
the
put a
scene
bomb
of
inside of
the
the
explosion that are
salon?
inconsistent with what
Like,
one
why
might
though?
expect to find at this business.
At this point, the investigators had a handful of questions. For example, how did an explosive device make its way to the spa? And was
Oh, it
Ildiko
is.
the intended
Wow.
target? As they continued to search for these answers, they
Why
received
put
a
a
call
bomb in
from a
there?
64-year-old man named Stephen Beale. Stephen helped Ildiko manage the spa, and when the news broke about the explosion, he was unable to contact Ildiko, so he reached out to the police for help. Since it was so early into the investigation, police were unable to provide any information. However, they were concerned that he might also be a target since he was a part of the spa's management team, so they drove directly to his house. Upon arrival, they noticed that he had some unopened parcels, and exercising caution, they asked for his permission to inspect them.
Can they go inside and take a look at those packages?
Please. Right as you open the door, the packages are to the left. There's 3 and they're in a stack.
Once the officers ruled out any threats, they conducted a preliminary interview with Stephen. They were wondering if he was aware of any enemies that Ildiko may have had.
I cannot come up with a single thought for who would ever want to hurt her. She was always smiling. She had great advice for people. She cared. She went out of her way to ease your burden, to do things for you. She'd buy things for people. When we go traveling, she'd send texts to various clients and friends. Say, what do you want me to bring? We bring back keychains. That's just the kind of, she's a very giving person.
Stephen spoke so highly of Ildiko that the officers wondered if the two were anything beyond business partners, so they asked Stephen about their personal relationship.
How long have you known her for?
We met June 19th, 2016 was our first date.
I notice you remember the exact date. How'd you guys meet?
Tinder.
Oh, through Tinder?
Yeah.
Okay. So June 19th, 2016, you met through Tinder.
Yeah, we were dating. We're business partners.
Got
We're
it.
still, very good friends, and but we're not dating anymore. So,
How long did you guys have a dating relationship?
about a year and a half.
Since detectives now knew that Ildiko was cheating on her husband, they wondered if her husband's knowledge of the affair could be a motive for the attack. So just like that, the spouse became the first suspect. This is Ronilo
Nah, if
Krajniak,
that's the case,
Ildiko's
blowing
husband.
up a
At the time of the
salon
explosion, Ronilo
because
wasn't
he
even
cheating
sure
on
where
you
his wife
is
was.
crazy.
In fact, he had told his friends that he believed that she was still on a trip to Hungary. When he heard that Ildiko's spa had been bombed, he immediately jumped in his car and drove to the scene. When he arrived, he asked the officers if his wife was in the building, and he was met with devastating news. After informing him of her death, the officers also presented him with a warrant to search his and Ildico's home. The search was exhaustive. However, investigators were unable to locate any incriminating evidence.
Search warrants were served earlier this morning, one at the business on Mariblu and one in Trabuco Canyon. At this time, there are no arrests.
Authorities acknowledge they have no profile of a suspect or suspects.
Directly following the search, the police conducted an interview with Ronilo, who had some suspicions of his own. Ronilo told officers about a building handyman named Max that maintained the commercial building where the spa was located. Apparently, Max had keys to each unit in the building and would often sleep in his van in the parking lot overnight. This seemed like a promising lead, since the building's cameras were not working, and Max was one of the only people with knowledge of this. However, after interviewing Max, he was also quickly cleared as a suspect. Another thing that Ronilo told the police was that in the months leading up to the attack, he had received text messages from a woman named Elizabeth, who claimed that Ildico had an affair with her husband, Gabor Pap. Elizabeth was questioned and told the officers the entire story. Apparently, in 2015, Elizabeth overheard Ildico and Gabor having intercourse, which led to a physical altercation at Ildico's spa. After this altercation, Gabor ended the affair and continued his relationship with Elizabeth. But eventually, Ildico popped back up as she tried to reconnect with Gabor through Facebook. Despite this tension between the two women, Elizabeth denied any involvement in the bombing and was ultimately ruled out after cooperating with investigators. The next suspect on the detectives' radar was a man who was witnessed with Ildico the morning of the explosion. This man was named Scott, and before the detectives could locate him, he showed up to the crime scene on his own accord, expecting to take Ildico out for lunch. As it turns out, Ildico was having an affair with Scott as well, and Scott was one of her newest boyfriends. Scott told the detectives that he and Ildico first met at a casino only a few weeks earlier, and they continued seeing each other from that point on.
Oh.
He explained that Ildico went on a trip to Hungary just 8 days before the explosion, and that he was her transportation
My
to
bad.
and from the airport. When he picked her up from LAX on May 14th, the evening before her death, the two spent the night together, and then Scott dropped her off at her spa the following morning. To corroborate his account, investigators reviewed the security footage from LAX. The footage from the LAX baggage claim confirmed Scott's story to be true, but upon further examination of Ildico's itinerary, they discovered that she had actually booked a connecting flight through San Francisco before heading to Hungary. When reviewing the footage of the San Francisco airport, a new suspect emerged. Ildico was seen flying to Hungary with another man. The mysterious man that Ildico was seen traveling with was Laszlo Zarbo. Police got in touch with Laszlo, and he told detectives that he and Ildico had been in an on-and-off relationship, and the trip to Hungary was the last time that he saw her. To rule him out further, police confirmed that he had not been in Southern California for months, so it was unlikely for him to have planted the bomb in the spa. And just as it appeared that the detectives were back at square one, they received an unexpected visit from Ildico's business partner and ex-boyfriend, Stephen Beal. Stephen was seeking updates about the ongoing case and volunteered to speak with detectives about the incident.
Real quick before we start, I just want to, you're here voluntarily, you came in, drove in on your own? Yeah. No one from the sheriff's department or any law enforcement agency asked you to come down, told you to come down? So when you're done talking to us, and just let me know when we can open that door right over there, and you can be on your way. Okay, appreciate that. As far as the business dynamic went, how did you guys split responsibilities or stuff as far as all
So
that
think
goes?
of her as the owner and me as the business manager, because I spent many years as an executive consultant. So she was my boss. So we would discuss things, but
Man
she
sitting
had
in
the
the chair
final
with
say.
his legs
Stephen
crossed.
explained that as their business flourished, so did their relationship. However, by 2018, their relationship started to face challenges.
I confronted her with some changes in her behavior.
Like what happened to me?
Well, when we first started dating, she gave me access to, she gave me her sign-on credentials for her United account. This is just as an example, because there was numerous little things like this. And then she, at one point, just for seemingly no reason, she changed her password and wouldn't tell me what the new password was, which was okay.
Right.
Okay, she can change her
But
password.
that, along with other little things, just sort of indicated to me that she had
something going on, okay?
Stephen was already aware that Ildiko was married, but as the
Honestly,
relationship fell apart,
changing your
he learned
password
that she
don't
was
mean
juggling
nothing.
other secret boyfriends as well.
So I just talked to her about that, and she admitted that she was going up to Sacramento to see another man. Yeah, she came clean about it. And the issue was, for me, why are you trying to hide it? Yeah. Because the reality is, if she had come to me and said, I really think that I want to, like, open up our relationship a little bit. I don't want to be exclusive. I want to, date other men. I would have said, okay, that's fine. We'll do that.
While Stephen's demeanor is calm as he is reflecting on his relationship with Ildiko, it was obvious that he had felt betrayed by her actions. The question became, was this betrayal the motive for killing her? He also had the skills needed to build a destructive device, which he makes clear when he's asked about his experience with explosives.
A friend of mine and I, we would build model rockets. And I started this years ago when my kids were little, and it got to be almost an obsession. And so, we built a 25-foot tall, 15-diameter, 4-stage rocket.
It turned out that Stephen's favorite hobby was building and launching large-scale model rockets. And in his toolbox was several chemicals that could be used to create the bomb in question.
So let's say, for example, when they do their analysis of
7 chemicals in your
found
bag
there,
is crazy.
chemicals found in your home.
What you doing with chemicals, my
Would it
boy?
just be a coincidence if it's the same?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I don't remember what chemicals are around in the house because I haven't taken them down. I haven't looked at them. I haven't thought of them. I didn't even know where they were.
Right.
In many, many years.
Would someone with your type of experience be able to convert that into something on a bigger scale?
I saw the devastation, in the pictures and news reports. I have no idea how you would put something together that would cause something like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you would go about doing that. That looks like a C4 sort of explosion or something. I mean, like some sort of very high explosive. I don't know what they did.
Despite his attempt to negate
That's
the
very
chemical evidence, Stephen
specific,
himself
my
admits
boy.
that he could have the means to commit this crime.
Your
That's
whole
very
deal is,
specific.
means, motive, and opportunity. And I don't know I don't know anybody that has the motive.
Okay. What about the means?
I don't know what's in my garage. I don't know what chemicals they found. So I suppose I could probably fall into
I
that
feel like he
category
lying about the
if the chemicals
chemicals
are right.
because the
I
chemicals
mean,
was
I don't know.
in his bag too.
But if they're taking the chemicals out, I would appreciate that they look at them, for like how much dust is on them. Because, if it's 8 years worth of dust accumulation on there, it would show up.
If this interview wasn't suspicious enough already, Stephen also mentioned a conversation with his new girlfriend Valerie, where they discussed writing stand-up comedy about the attack.
Valerie looked at me, I think, yesterday.
What? Comedy about the attack, bro.
Immediate life goal right now is to get to the point where we look at this particular set of events and can joke about it because we think it's funny, because it's not. Mm-hmm. And then she said, you need to do a stand-up comedy routine about it, because there's a lot of really, potentially humorous anecdotes that are just wrapped up in the most intense life situations.
Yeah.
And, if the audience can relate to what you're going through and it's delivered in a, humorous manner, you're going to win. People love to be entertained.
If you're wondering what could possibly be humorous about someone dying in such a gruesome way, you're not alone. Stephen's willingness to use this tragic event as part of his stand-up routine was only one of many red flags. He had also made a peculiar comment about how the bomb may have been triggered by Ildiko.
Going back to something you just mentioned, you talked about the size of the package that she would have had to have opened in order to have done that kind of damage. Why would you assume it was a package that she opened?
Because it's in the news reports.
That she opened a package?
It said it was a package.
Is that the only way that a package could be utilized?
I don't know. I suppose you could have a timer in there or a cell phone or something that would, that would trigger it. It's just package for me means you open it. I mean, That's my assumption. When I get a package in the mail, I open it. Other than that, I don't know.
Was this a Freudian slip from Stephen? How could he have possibly known that Ildiko had opened a package, triggering the bomb? After this interview, Stephen was free to go. Not because officers believed that he was innocent, but to continue monitoring him to gather more evidence before an arrest is made. As they monitored him, police discovered that Stephen had been on disability for about 10 years due to a condition known as aphasia, which causes memory loss, reading difficulties, and communication challenges. Curious about his condition, detectives attended one of Stephen's plays to observe him in action. To their surprise, his performance showed a man who did not appear to struggle with any of the outlined symptoms.
Good enough. How many more people are going to have to die before you do something useful? This case is spiraling crazy out of control. When the media gets wind of Mr. Segerstrom here, there's going to be a feeding frenzy, and we're going to be at the very center of all of that national attention.
Whether Stephen had this condition or not, it became evident to the detectives that he had a habit of bending the truth. Following his performance, investigators got a warrant to search Stephen's property. They hit the jackpot.
This was the scene at his Long Beach home where armed federal agents swarmed the street and broke down his doors. Investigators found items used to make the bomb at the scene that matched items inside Beal's car and home.
There was about 130 pounds of chemicals, along with 2 improvised explosive devices, electrical wires, and matches. Stephen claimed that it had been years since he last built a rocket, and that the chemicals found in the garage sat around unused. At this point, detectives were unable to charge Stephen with any crimes directly connected to the bombing. But as a result of the search, he was arrested by the FBI on an unrelated charge, the possession of 2 unregistered explosive devices.
Now investigators are turning their attention to the dead woman's ex-boyfriend, whose hobby involves building rockets and sending them into the sky using powerful propellants.
Neighbors say they often saw Beal building the rockets in his driveway.
And he was setting off homemade rockets.
And you said that they were as tall as a person, the rockets?
Yeah, some of them were.
Only about a week after his arrest, Stephen would be a free man.
Out of jail and free, prosecutors dismissed the charge against the man arrested for a blast that killed his ex-girlfriend.
Well, federal prosecutors dropped the criminal charge against Stephen Beal.
Well, what the feds are saying is that they dropped this charge without prejudice, which means it could be refiled at a later date. There were questions about the devices seized from Stephen Beal's home and whether by law they can be defined as destructive. So Stephen Beal was set free.
Mr. Beal, any comments?
All right. Where are you?
Stephen's new girlfriend Valerie picked him up from the jail once he was released, and investigators went right back to gathering evidence to charge him with the murder of Ildiko. While Stephen and Valerie were running errands the following day, they were stopped by the police, leading to an intense search of Valerie's vehicle, which involved a bomb-sniffing dog and 13 police cruisers. The police didn't find anything. Unfortunately, it would take nearly 10 months before their luck would change. In February of 2019, the detectives received the results back from the forensic lab. Within the results, there was a breakthrough. The chemicals and wiring recovered from the bomb were a direct match to those discovered in Stephen's garage. They also had a second breakthrough when they reviewed his bank transactions. They found that in the week before the explosion, Stephen had bought a cardboard box with dimensions that were identical to the box containing the bomb. That same day, Stephen was also recorded at a nearby Chase Bank withdrawing cash from an ATM. Moments later, Stephen used that cash at a CVS pharmacy to buy a 9-volt battery, the exact same type of battery that was used in the explosive device. If this wasn't enough, detectives were also able to obtain Stephen's cell phone records, which indicated multiple visits to the spa during Ildiko's trip to Hungary, which gave him ample time to place the bomb on her front desk. His computer activity also revealed a borderline obsessive pattern of monitoring her social media accounts and the online scheduling app for the business. And to put the nail in the coffin, police learned that by the end of their relationship, Ildiko was afraid that Stephen would harm her. She had repeatedly expressed to her friends that she was concerned about Stephen's controlling and jealous behavior. With all of this evidence piling up against Stephen, detectives were still looking for the final piece to seal his fate in the court.
Like, how you gonna put a bomb on her dress, on her dresser, bro, on her desk?
So detectives hatched a
Just
new plan
cause
involving Stephen's new
you felt like
fiancée,
she was
Valerie.
cheating on you.
Stephen proposed to Valerie.
She
a couple
probably
of
wasn't
months
even
after he
cheating.
was
She
released
probably
from
just
jail.
wanted to
She said
change her
yes,
stuff.
and to
Just change it.
celebrate their engagement, the two went on an expensive romantic getaway. When they returned from their trip, detectives approached Valerie behind Stephen's back and offered to pay for their trip expenses if believe she
You was
helped
the
them
one
record
cheating?
Stephen saying something incriminating about the attack, since she felt that it was the morally right thing to do. She consented to having hidden recording devices installed in their hotel room and in her vehicle. Additionally, she was given a necklace with a hidden microphone. Unfortunately, this didn't work, as Stephen did not feed into any of Valerie's attempts to gather information. Despite this failed plan, authorities felt that they had substantial evidence linking Stephen to the death of Ildiko. On Sunday, March 4th, 2019, Stephen was arrested and charged with the destruction of a building and first-degree murder. He was held in jail without bond.
This is the second time the man who lives in that home has been arrested in connection with the explosion that
They should have
killed his
just did it as soon
ex-girlfriend.
as they sent him
Federal
to jail the
agents
first
arrived at the
time. I
home
ain't
in
gonna
this
lie.
residential neighborhood earlier today.
Why they
Authorities
wait
say
so
they
long
have
just to
arrested Stephen Beal.
catch him?
Officers and investigators have been here at the scene for several hours conducting an extensive search of the home. His arrest is connected to that deadly explosion. So once again, Stephen Beal has been taken into custody. And again, authorities have been out here for several hours searching his home. And from what they tell us, that search is going to continue for quite some time.
Although there was a mountain of compelling evidence pointing towards him, Stephen continued to maintain his innocence. His trial began in June of 2022. 4 years after the explosion. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence of Stephen's means, motive, and opportunity to commit the crime, portraying him as a jealous lover who couldn't tolerate Ildiko being with another man. They asserted that Stephen used materials from his home to make the bomb, and forensic analysis confirmed that the chemical residue at the crime scene matched the substances in Stephen's garage. Furthermore, his Google history included a search that said, "Narcissist deceiving a polygraph test." They also emphasized that Ildiko was not the only victim, as 2 other people also suffered debilitating injuries from the blast. Stephen Beal's defense team hounded the prosecutors for being more
Man, they
intent
should
on
have
proving
been
Stephen's
caught
guilt
him and
than on
locked him up.
identifying the actual perpetrator. The defense also presented text messages between Stephen and Ildiko, in which Ildiko expressed her desire to be with him again. These were used to demonstrate that the two remained close even after their breakup, and that Stephen was not jealous enough to want her dead. The defense argued that other individuals in Ildiko's life, such as Elizabeth Papp, Gabor's scorned wife, could have had a motive. After all, Elizabeth openly despised Ildiko. There was also the fact that the security cameras at the spa were not working. Given this piece of information, they suggested that Max, the building handyman, was a possible suspect that was glazed over by investigators. Another possible suspect was Ildiko's husband, Ranilo, who knew about her infidelity and therefore may have been motivated to kill her out of jealousy. The defense contended that Stephen's purchase of a 9-volt battery was normal, as Ildiko required that specific battery type for her business. And Stephen's search for information about deceiving a polygraph was explained by his recent audition to be cast as a polygraph examiner. After a grueling 7-week trial and testimonies from 66 witnesses, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict.
A federal jury in downtown Los Angeles couldn't agree if a man from Long Beach is guilty of using a homemade bomb to kill his ex-girlfriend by blowing up the day spa she owned in Aliso Viejo. A judge declared a mistrial and sent the jurors home.
This is a major setback for federal prosecutors who spent weeks presenting a very complicated, circumstantial case in court that they hoped would convict Stephen Beal of making that bomb. And despite showing a mountain of clues that prosecutors said linked Beal to the bombing and the murder, the defense said the case lacked direct evidence and couldn't be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. These sketches from closing argument show Beal sitting at the left there listening as prosecutors asked jurors to find him guilty of using a weapon of mass destruction to carry out the murder of spa owner Ildiko Krajnak, who was also Beal's ex-girlfriend. Earlier today, jurors told the judge in federal court downtown they were unable to reach a verdict. They were deadlocked, reportedly split 9-3. And jurors also, we should mention, sent another deadlock warning a couple of weeks ago. But they were sent back to continue deliberations. Now, at the trial, Beal's defense said the FBI made a snap judgment to prosecute Beal simply because they found those more than 100 pounds of explosive precursor chemicals in his home, said that he had the skills and knowledge on how to build bombs, and was recorded on security video buying a battery and boxes. They also said he had a plausible motive as a vengeful ex-boyfriend. But the defense said all of that was circumstantial and claimed the feds ignored other potential suspects. So now, federal prosecutors tell me they plan to retry Beal on the same charges with a new jury beginning in October.
Stephen was held behind bars until his retrial, which began 1 year later on June 29, 2023. During his second trial, prosecutors introduced the same evidence they presented in the previous trial. However, this time they also included a recreation of the explosion and compared it to the footage of the actual crime scene. The bomb used in the recreation was designed using the exact same resources that Stephen had access to. The mannequin fragments after the blast had a striking resemblance to the state of Ildeco's scattered body parts found at the scene. The graphic illustration seemed to make a significant impact on the jurors, and on July 19th of the same year, after 90 minutes of deliberation, the jury found Stephen Beale guilty of first-degree murder.
And now to breaking news. A Long Beach man is convicted in the deadly bombing of an
Yeah.
Aliso Viejo day spa in 2018. Stephen Beale was found guilty of using a weapon of mass destruction and other charges. The blast killed his ex-girlfriend and injured 2 others inside the spa. Investigators say they later found 130 pounds of bomb-making materials inside Beale's home. He'll be sentenced in November.
On January 19th,
It
2024,
wasn't
a
that serious to
64-year-old
make a
Stephen Beale was
bomb,
sentenced
bro.
to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 30 years for possession and use of an unregistered destructive device.
Friends and family of the woman who was killed expressed relief at today's sentencing, but 64-year-old Stephen Beale maintained his innocence, insisted that the wrong person was in the courtroom, which the Orange County Sheriff called an insult to justice. At his sentencing, Stephen Beale told the judge he wished that, quote, the person who actually committed this crime was sitting here and not me. That brought a strong reaction outside the federal courthouse from Orange County Sheriff Don Barnes.
It was an insult to the criminal justice process that he did that. We have the right guy. We had the right guy all along.
The end result is what matters, and to get an end result that will actually stick. That's what we have here.
U.S. Attorney Martina Strada credited the conviction to a more streamlined second trial.
Mr. Beale was finally brought to justice and is off the streets and can no longer hurt anybody else.
He is currently serving his sentence at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Deserved. He made a whole bomb. He made a whole bomb just because he thought his girl was cheating on him. When actually, I feel like he was the one cheating. It sure showed him with another girl. But make sure you like and subscribe and follow my Twitch. And thank you.